All right, y'all, what's going on? Goofy Rexy here, and hope everybody is doing well. And wanted to talk about this subject. I actually did this last year as well with Dark Dimension 4, and realized that my approach really to Dark Dimension 5 is kind of similar to the approach that I did last year, which was essentially not to rush to Dark Dimension 4. And this year, I'm also doing the same thing as well. I am not rushing to Dark Dimension 5. But wanted to talk about it because I feel like there's a lot of players who are kind of anxious and they're trying to plan out, hey, who should I invest into Dark Dimension 5? Should I bring in XYZ character? And, you know, I just feel like there's a little bit of a panic to a certain extent. Maybe it's not panic, maybe it's just anxiousness. That could be it too. And I completely understand where that is concerned, but kind of want to talk about, from my perspective, why I'm not rushing into Dark Dimension 5. Now, for me personally, I would consider myself to be an endgame player. I mean, I'm doing Doom 2 raids. We're kind of, we're facing some alliances here in Plat 2 that are kind of difficult. So I would consider myself to be an endgame player, not super endgame, but still doing endgame content here. 14 million TCP. So definitely in the place where I could definitely push to Dark Dimension 5, but one of the reasons why I'm not rushing myself to Dark Dimension 5 right now is really just understanding that unless I am willing to spend money to do it, it really kind of makes no sense, or it's really actually kind of difficult in order for me to even push into Dark Dimension 5. The amount of resources that are necessary in order for me to be able to do this, and I've been using the spreadsheet right now. So obviously there's a spreadsheet that was created by Bacon and a few other guys who are part of the community. I also have my another sheet that I use here, which is Groot. Shout out to Zara Tools. And kind of just maps out the amount of gear that I'm going to need in order to be able to get into Dark Dimension 5. And looking at the sheet right here, let me click on my farming tab or my inventory tab. I have a couple of characters that are mapped out to go to Dark Dimension 5, and just looking at the amount of just augmented gear that I'm going to need in order to be able to get into Dark Dimension 5, it's a little disheartening, right? Taking a look at, actually, I'm on the wrong sheet. I can't. Oh, there it is. Let's pull this is the right sheet here. Just pulling up the sheet and looking at the amount of resources that I need in order to be able to get into Dark Dimension 5, the augmented gear that I need. It's quite astonishing. The amount that I need here. So if you're looking at just my Mystic gear right now, I'm going to need 1,400 pieces, 1,400 more pieces in order to be able to get into it. I'm also going to need, for just like the catalyst, right? I need over, 5,000 pieces of augmented basic catalyst, health catalyst. You can kind of see where my reds are, right? Like this is the amount of gear that I need in order to be able to get into it. So unless I am willing to spend a buku set of money to grab these pieces, or to get extra gold to grab stuff, it's just really not going to make any sort of sense buying orbs. It's really just not realistic for me to try to do it. So my best bet is to wait for certain things to maybe potentially roll around. We don't know. Maybe war store to have a teal gear raid orb, or for there to be some more actual good mini uniques that are available in the RTA pass, things like that. It's just a little bit better for me to kind of be a little bit more patient where that is concerned, as opposed to trying to go all gung-ho and trying to grab all of these resources all at once. And it's just not realistic when you need, plethora of characters, 5 characters per node in order to be able to get in there. So therefore that's kind of one of the reasons why. Now you could say, well, what about bringing in some of these cheaper characters into Dark Dimension 5, like a Sabretooth, or I've heard some people say Lady Deathstrike. Yeah, I mean, you could go that route too, but I just don't want to waste resources on cheap characters. That's really kind of the second thing for me, man. It says I don't want to waste resources on cheap characters. And I saw a lot of people do that last year, where they brought in Sabretooth, they brought in some of these other characters that were just not, in my opinion, just not really worth rushing into the content, right? Yes, you're going to be able to be done quicker, sure, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're bringing in characters, in my opinion, that you're still spending catalysts, you're still spending some sort of resources in order to be able to do it. So I would prefer to allocate those resources to a better character that's going to be more effective for me in raid content, that's going to be more effective for me in arena. And that's essentially how I'm kind of building out my Dark Dimension 5 roster. Now there's still some question marks here, but what some of the characters I'm bringing in are for the most part are good for for raids, right? So I'm prioritizing raid characters to build up: Ghost Spider, Scarlet Spider, Cloak, Dagger, Shang-Chi, Doom. Now I have Lady Deathstrike here. I'm gonna be taking her off the list, but I did have her here now because yes, to a certain extent I am using her in raids, so that might be effective. So I do have her there, but obviously Captain Sam, Maria Hill, Sharon Carter. I have Minerva here for tech, but I'm probably gonna go against that idea as well because she's becoming less valuable in raid content. So there are some question marks that are here. Lady Deathstrike, Minerva. So therefore, yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but I don't want to bring in bad characters into Dark Dimension 5 just so that I can get through the content faster, because ultimately at the end of the day, that kind of hurts me from being able to bring in characters that I really want to be able to use in other areas of the game other than just Dark Dimension. The third point for me, man, is really just they're going to be better characters, right? We saw this with Dark Dimension 4. Dark Dimension 4 started, Cosmic was a struggle. There was Thanos, there was Proxima. There was not really a lot of characters that were available to players at that point in time. But then Kestrel got released, and then Silver Surfer got released, and then players brought in Hela, and prior to that, Hela, Proxima, Thanos, and Minerva, and then those characters weren't necessarily the best characters that would ultimately characters that were later on recommended to be able to do Dark Dimension for Cosmic. It was Kestrel, it was Silver Surfer. There were better characters that were available at that point in time. So basically kind of waiting a little bit instead of trying to rush into it will kind of yield dividend, right? Because then they're going to be better characters that are going to be released. Same thing for City. A lot of players are like, man, I'm going to bring in SSM. I'm going to bring in AV. That's what I'm going to do right now. And then here comes the Web Warriors. And now Web Warriors are probably better to bring in because you're using them outside of Dark Dimension. You're going to be using them in raid content. So therefore you can justify the investment. So better characters will become available as you continue to play the game. Better characters will become available to you, and you'll be able to use those characters if you don't use the gear already. And then I think also the best way to kind of plan for Dark Dimension 5 is to try to bring in city characters up first, and then bring in your global characters, then so on and so forth. As the way that the nodes are progressing in Dark Dimension 5, I think that's the best way to kind of build out your roster, is to go with the actual traits first, and then kind of move on from there. So that's kind of the best way to sort of plan efficiently. That's one of the things that I would personally do. One of the last things for me to talk about here is that ultimately, man, I get the idea of wanting to race, but there really is no reason to race at this point in time. I mean, the race is done. So not on Mac 1. There's been a lot of players who have already won the Dark Dimension 5 already. You're good. Like, there's really no reason for you to rush it anymore. You got to look at it from the perspective of even where you are right now in your arena shard. Are there a lot of players who currently have Dormammu? In my arena shard right now, there's no one that has Dormammu, so there's really no reason for me to rush that. Dormammu doesn't really seem like a pressing character that I need and have to have right now. So can I wait to do it? Can I wait to get the right characters? Can I wait to invest into the characters that are going to be the beneficial for my overall roster growth or roster effectiveness, as opposed to trying to rush into Dark Dimension 5 just so I can say that I completed Dark Dimension 5? Yeah, you sure. Yeah, I absolutely would say that that's the best way to go, is to wait instead of actually trying to rush in there. So because the race is ultimately already won, Dormammu's impact is not there as of yet. So yeah, maybe if you're in a different position where Dormammu is going to start to be an impact in your arena shard, then yeah, sure, what the hell, go ahead and do what you feel like you have to do in order for you to be able to compete in that area. But I guess maybe I have a little bit more patience than most, and I am willing to wait until I get the right characters in, and wait until I use my resources effectively before I decide to rush into content like that, because ultimately I just feel like that to me is more impactful than the impact of trying to rush to get Dormammu. So those are pretty much basically my thoughts. The reason why I'm not rushing to Dark Dimension 5. I wanted to make this video because I feel like maybe there are some players that will also be able to resonate with the sentiment as well. So that's the reason why I wanted to talk about this here in the video. Of course, let me know. What are your comments? You think I'm crazy? You think I'm crazy for not wanting to rush to get into Dark Dimension 5? hey, leave that in the comments too. Appreciate you guys watching the video, of course. I'm curious to know where you guys are in your preparation. What are you thinking about Dark Dimension 5? I think ultimately, yes, you're probably gonna have to go at 90%, 95% of the characters are gonna be good outside of raids. Maybe you may have to make an exception to bring in some characters that that maybe aren't necessarily part of the today meta in a raid or arena. Or you could just be patient like how I'm essentially going to be. I'm just going to wait now. I'm taking certain characters off my planning list. Minerva's not going anymore because ultimately I don't really think that she's going to have that long-term impact on my roster. So I'm going to be reallocating here who I'm going to be invested into, and I'm going to go the patient route. So listen, those are my thoughts, guys. Appreciate you guys watching the video. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Check out the Discord links down below. A few of the links down below: Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, where I do stream Marvel Strike Force content, where I'm also making this video right now live as well. So appreciate y'all watching the video, and until next time, y'all be blessed, y'all be safe. Deuces. Woo. Rapid fire, baby. Ran through that video. All right.